Welcome, Ghosts, back to Bullet Catcher Gaming. Thank you so much for all of our recent subscribers. We massively appreciate every single one of you. We have a Discord. The link is in the description below. And good news, the survey results are going to be coming very, very soon. Keep an eye out for that. Thank you to everyone who has filled out the survey. Really appreciate it. There are a few more days still. If you want to get in and do the survey, this literally will be the last couple of days you get the opportunity to do it. So the link for that is also in the description below. So this video, you might be wondering what it's all about. So recently, say over the last 3 or 4 videos, I've seen a few comments that really drew my attention. So what these comments basically state is that certain people would like, in the next Ghost Recon, to see it as an open world tier 1 fantasy. I found this really interesting, so I thought it was, worthy of a video, or at least a discussion on a video. So I'm going to go through it a little bit, what it could be, and then, we can discuss in the comments, etc. So, and obviously the most important thing is would you want this as a game? We'll get into it more. So to begin with, I suppose we should clarify what a tier 1 and the fantasy meaning actually is. Now, I think what was clearly meant here was the fantasy situation would be something that we could immerse ourselves in, that would be a recreation of sorts as to what a tier 1 team would be asked of them militarily. It does not mean a fantasy scenario that, you may find on one of many other tube sites on the internet somewhere. Though both could feature gas masks, I suppose. But in terms of tier 1, I really don't want to insult anyone's intelligence here. And obviously, most people will absolutely know what it is. But just in case there is somebody, this is a very simplistic explanation. Basically, what it means, it's the name given to the world's most elite special forces, such as like Delta, kind of DevGru, SAS, SBS, SRR, GROM. There's loads of others, but they're all kind of tier 1 units. So now we got that bit out of the way, we can have a look at exactly what's being asked for here. So basically, a Ghost Recon game that allows you to live out the fantasy of being a tier 1 operator, conducting missions in a way that would be viewed as realistic. Now, to do this accurately, you would need the services of some ex-tier 1 operators as advisors to be able to make sure the game was maybe being made to the realistic template required to represent the fantasy situation. Now, some of the Ghost Recon games of the past, you would often wonder if they got their military advice from the guy who came in to fix the toilet. So to create a realistic fantasy of a tier 1 reality, can you use the current open world mission style format? And I think the answer would be an emphatic yes. In fact, I think it would provide the best format for this, as that you could include scenarios like escape and invasion, for example, which would work far better than a linear path game, and also insert, be able to have insertion to mission areas. That should obviously ideally happen a good distance away from your target. If it's linear, that's going to be really difficult to pull that off. Now, if you do have ex-tier 1 operators on board from the start, then you would expect the weapons, gear, and tactics to be on point. But most importantly, the designs of the mission themselves. An ultra-realistic approach to mission design and planning would be an absolute must. Out with the pirate and fishing side missions, and in with the intel gathering and real-world scenario missions. Now, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of mission styles they could take inspiration from World War II style commando raids all the way to a modern-day deck of cards, kill or capture kind of missions. Now, I don't think the location is overly important in this scenario, as long as it looks great, and the world feels alive, though some may feel a real-life location of a recent war zone could be beneficial for it. And I don't argue against that. I just don't think it's the direction Ubisoft will ever go in. Now, some of you may also rightly say, this sounds great, but it is a game after all. And certain day-to-day requirements of a Tier 1 operator just won't work in a game that's obviously supposed to be fun to play. And this, obviously, I agree with too. You can't really have practice runs of missions out of country. I don't think anyone wants to see our operator lay down for a nap under a tree, and they especially don't want to watch them shit in a bag and then have to bury it after. I think that's going a little bit too far. But I believe what these commenters on these videos, raised this question, who raised this fantasy element. I think what they were saying is what they meant was they want a game based in realism that would utilize a Ghost Recon lore within a real world kind of special forces reality. Moving like they do, maneuvering like they do, looking like they do, acting like they do, so on and so forth. I don't actually believe that's a big ask to have in a future title. The bigger question really is just how important is this to people? I'd say it is important. It's important to me. And without speaking for all of you epic people watching this, I would say it's probably important to you too. Now, I know many of you constantly say, I want my operator to look just how I want them to look, to customize them down to the minute detail, including your weapons. And I'm in total agreement with this. Realistic vehicles, air support, uniforms, dialogue, night vision optics, tactics, weapons, to name but a few, are all doable in a new game if Ubisoft want to take it in that direction, which I think they should. So what current issues would clash with this idea? In the last few titles especially, as they're the ones that I think most people are still playing. Now, not that I believe we will ever see it again, but obviously if you want a realistic fantasy, you can't have gear score. Gear score in a realistic Tier 1 simulator would be about as useful as a, fishnet condom. Drones would need to be dialed down. Yes, drones exist and form a big part of special operations, but when have you ever heard about Navy SEALs fighting off a large army of robotic tanks? How about never? So that would need to be a much more grounded, I think, in its approach. The RPG mechanics, especially in the last game, would either have to be totally reworked or just removed. During the Bin Laden compound raid, I did not read anything about operators running around picking up fauna and leaves and then creating bandages from them. Maybe they need to go. Or, like I said, be reworked. Operator movement in the last few games, though decent, does have major issues. Breakpoint, in the prone position, you can't move backwards. Instead, you have to kind of turn and face forward and do like a kind of circle motion to get back into position. And moving in crouched, makes your operator look like they've got a turtle head poking out. What this fantasy needs is, some slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Added in some breaching capabilities and accurate movement and stuff, and you're on the right kind of track. Raids, now, they actually could have a place if done right, using real-world military objectives. But the raid we got in Breakpoint, fighting supercomputers, should never return and obviously wouldn't fit into this type of game scenario. Now, I could go on for a long time detailing the things that could need to go or be improved on to make this fantasy setting come true. But I'll give one more perhaps that I think is truly important. The walls were supposed to be elite, but they acted like Disney-era stormtroopers. The enemy AI must test you. The enemies must flank. They must react to what you're doing. Facing off against Sentinel can kind of feel like playing whack-a-mole with an M4. The enemy troops need to be good. They need to be able to go prone. They need to move like a team, not go running in all directions when you open fire, Like, I don't know, you just threw some vegetables to eat at some kids at a children's birthday party. The enemy Spec Ops teams, if there is one, which there should be, they need to be superb and they need to challenge you to the limit with their skill in combat. No repeats of the Wolf QRF teams who'd been learning skills from Harry Houdini and magically appearing next to you when the mystical red smoke appeared. So, there's a few things that need to be added and a few things that need to never return to make a Ghost Recon a tier 1 fantasy simulator, as people stated. Now, would this push away your average gamer who is not a Ghost Recon nut like us? AAA titles, whether we like it or not, need to be able to cater to a large audience because they need to see a lot of the green stuff flowing in. That's the debate. What do you think? I don't see why you cannot have a realistic Spec Ops style game that has huge appeal. Special Forces operators are kind of like rock stars in the gaming community. Other games have kind of leaned heavily on real life, and those games have flourished. I mean, hell, even Modern Warfare has actually some really great realistic missions. But then again, it also has the shooting from a chopper upside down, then jumping from the chopper onto a vehicle, then to another vehicle across multiple vehicles in the largest vehicle convoy known to mankind. Oh, sorry, I just hate thinking about that mission. It actually makes me really angry. I hated it. I just wanted to throw something through the TV. But anyway, moving on. You get one meaning. So apart from the odd classic Call of Duty silliness, even they have obviously tried to go down the more realistic route. Now, a realistic tier 1 game, though, cannot be made, like I said at the beginning, without the help and guidance throughout the whole process of some actual tier 1 operators. If this does not happen, then don't expect the fantasy to become reality. So, tier 1 fantasy for Ghost Recon, yes or no? Do you want it to go in that direction, or do you prefer a more arcade-style tactical shooter, more akin to, say, how Wildlands and Breakpoint have been? I'd say they were more arcadey than all-out tactical. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Would really love to hear what you think. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. I'll see you again on the next one. Bye-bye.